just want to get at least ask him some of the questions
Yep.
upfront about it.
Cool. Sounds good. Just doing the social post now. Bing, bing. So that is there on the Discord. The Twitter should also have just gone out. I should go and verify that we're sounding good on YouTube as well. Just can't help from looking, using curiosity to your advantage. What's in the box? Did you like the thumbnail? You see the thumbnail?
No,
Oh man,
man,
check
I don't
out the
know with what
thumbnail,
time. I don't know what time you think I have to look at a YouTube
mate.
thumbnail.
Mate, check out the thumbnail. You got time now? You got 2 minutes.
Let me have a look now.
If you go on the Discord, it'll show you, or on Twitter. Either one of those. What's in the box? Yeah, I got a whole bunch of notes. Are we going to record on Saturday or Sunday out in the South Bank?
Yeah, yeah, we'll have to because I'm not here the next weekend.
Okay, cool. Yeah, sweet. Let's do it. That's going on there.
What day is it today?
Today is a Wednesday.
What Wednesday?
26.
20. What? Oh yeah, right.
Here we go. Would you describe
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah, we got it in there for Sunday.
yourself as a curious person? Yeah, cool. All right. Well, I'll save a bunch of my other notes and stuff until then, because I've got a couple. Nothing major, but just some its and bits. The website should be looking a little bit better, especially the support page.
Oh, did you update the PayPal?
I had a crack at it. Look, it's basic at the moment. I'm in chats with Moritz to be able to get like a nice button to put there, which I
With
imagine is
who?
relatively doable. He's the Albi, one of the guys who created Albi.
Gotcha.
So I want to have like a PayPal button and an Albi button. I think that's basically what would be good. So yeah, I'm gonna dive into some of their
I-
documentation and stuff.
Is that not something that is that something that they have to do? Like you can't just custom them?
I know nothing about coding and know nothing about buttons. I know nothing about websites. So I just asked, is there something that you can copy and paste somewhere that will create a button? And he's like,
Uh,
oh, maybe check out this area.
yeah. Is it a so it's not a button what they provide you?
What, Albi?
Yeah, like what are they? What's the?
He just linked me to like a GitHub docs of what you can do with Albi and how you can integrate it into your websites or your apps or whatever.
But do you have like a link?
I literally just said, how this is what I want to do. Do you know anything about this? And he's like, go check in here. So yeah, that's about as far as I've got.
Gotcha. Because if it's just as simple as a link or essentially
It'd
code.
probably need to be more complex, because it's like, if they don't have Albi, it would need to direct them to this one place. If they do have, it would need to reference our wallet to bring up to then be able to say, do you want to boost this wallet? So it kind of needs to be a multifunctional thing,
Right. I
depending
mean,
on
still fairly easy. It's going to be on our end, not on his end, to
yeah,
do that. Well, some of that trigger.
probably
Um,
yes.
but you can. So through, you don't even have to go even more. You don't have to like have a full coding software. You can do a simple if statement to do the dual. How you trigger those? I mean, yes, that's where the complexity lies.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just gonna root around, see what is in certain places, and um,
so it comes up.
figure out where to go from there.
Mm.
All right, you ready? Should I run this one, or do you want to?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
you're on the thumbnail, so you can run it if you want to.
No, that's okay.
All right, sweet. So that's all good, and you're recording on your end because I'm not.
Yes.
Ha ha ha. Am I now? Check, 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 check. Yep, sweet. Cool. All right, here we go. What is today? 26. Come on, you musings thing. Play. Man, I set this all up. Set this all up pre-hand for it to just work easy. And it's not doing it. Good. What is that button there? What does that do? So the preview one works. There's the one that I can hear just on my end,
Mm-hmm.
but your all right, I'll just play another one and then whatever.
Cool.
Are any of these going to work? No. All right. Sorry, people. No music. Welcome, Immortals. Welcome, Immortals, to another episode of the Mere Mortals Musings. You have Kyron here on this side,
You've got one here on the other side.
and we're doing it remotely today on the 26th of July, 2023, for a live musing session, which we always do at 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on a Wednesday. The
Correct.
musing session is one where we pick a particular topic, a theme, and we dive deeper into that. We try and find learnings, takeaways that are kind of philosophical, but have a real world use case. So effective philosophy, something that we can actually apply to our everyday lives. And I picked today's topic, and it was all about curiosity. We've kind of hinted at this before, one, but I don't think we actually have done an episode directly on this. And so the link to this was tenuous at best, but it was to the research episode that we did on the last musings. And I was kind of thinking, like, if you are researching something, are you by default curious? So if you're researching something, if you're investigating something, does that mean you're curious? We'll maybe start off there. What do you think about that?
I don't know.
Because I've got the definition here as well, and
What's the definition that it pulls up there?
oh, it's so fuzzy, man. It seems to be a coverall. So I was looking at it, and it was saying things like it's all aspects of human development, i.e., learning. So I'm like, well, if if all learning is considered as being curious, then everyone is curious because everyone basically learns how to pick up a language. I mean, especially children, for sure.
Hmm.
Are there adults who just don't learn anything once they hit 18? I don't think so. I think you're always kind of learning. So it kind of seemed a bit iffy to be able to use
Yeah.
that.
Where did you get the definition from?
That one was kind of taken from Wikipedia and some of the others. Inquisitive thinking was also put up there. I think that's getting closer to it. And then
Hmm.
also talking about having a desire and eagerness. So it was kind
Yeah,
of,
that's I was gonna say. That's probably where it landed for me.
yeah,
In having a bit of a look, it was more the desire to know. Had like there was had to be some like effort on the part of the entity to take some sort of action. So because you wouldn't say like there's I guess passive curiosity in the sense that if you get dropped into some brand new location or thing that you're doing that you've never done before, you're just gonna subconsciously go and be curious to try to figure out your state. But that's really more of a passive. I'd say the active nature of curiosity is probably what we're talking about today, and that's for me like the desire to know something. Like you wanting to go, oh hey, I want to learn about this, or I need to figure this out. Maybe for a reason, maybe not for a reason, but not just like an independent, involuntary way that as a body, you're just trying to be like, oh, I'm sentient. What's going on around me?
yeah, true, true. Where do you want to start off? My notes start off with like the bad things about it, which I don't think is a great way to start a podcast. For example, so did you have any notes on the kind of positive aspects of curiosity, or
I
anywhere
do,
you wanted to
but I
go?
think we start at the bad end,
You
anyways,
want to?
because it was actually right after the definition of the desire to know. I actually had a little question mark here, and there's another little notes that I've got as well. So I wrote curiosity killed the cat, but also
Okay.
noisiness. So in terms of kind of overstepping the boundary of being curious, and maybe sometimes we go into the good things and then we go bad things, right? And we should go on the
Okay.
other side and
All
go.
right. Here we
There's
go.
actually some bad stuff with
Yeah.
curiosity.
Yeah.
And that was one of the questions I was going to ask you was, do you think that in being curious, you can be defined as being too nosy, of wanting to know too many things?
Well, for sure. I was actually, when I was creating the thumbnail,
Hmm.
initially it's so easy. Curiosity, what's the first thing? Curiosity killed the cat. So I was thinking of putting a little cat on the thumbnail. Instead, I chose the funnier one, which was two frogs, and one of them was peering into the underpants of the other one, with the added thing of what's in the box, which is taken from the movie Seven, which is where Brad Pitt's like yelling out, "What's in the box?" And I won't spoil that, but there's something interesting in the box.
Right.
And so I was going to do that, but I was looking actually into the what would you call that? The phrasing
Mhm.
of where did curiosity kill the cat come from? And it was actually from a Shakespearean. It first came up in a Shakespearean play, and it was actually care killed the cat. And in this case, care in
Mm.
English back then was more something like worry. It was worry killed the cat. So it was actually nothing even to do with curiosity. It
Nice.
was just one of those things that's just morphed over time and become its own thing. And it was only until the 1900s, and it was more, I believe it was made into a kind of compilation style book of Irish phrases, I think it was, which was Curiosity Killed the Cat in that format. Came out. And then there was another one which was Curiosity Killed the Cat, but Satisfaction Brought It Back, which was kind
I
of
think I've had that one
a
too.
play on that, being like, okay, Curiosity Killed the Cat, but Satisfaction Brought It Back. So if you're curious, you should satisfy it to actually, you know, not die.
I'll die. Yeah, come
um,
back.
but the modern context definitely is the prying and being nosy. And that is generally where you would use that phrase, curiosity killed the cat. Uh, I don't know. It's probably because for me, and we'll get on to later whether we consider ourselves curious, but because I'm not, I don't think I've actually even really heard too many bad stories of people being too nosy and it really backfiring. It can kind of be a little bit gross sometimes if someone's doing it, but it's not like if someone is overly curious or overly prying, I will jettison them from my life, or it's kind of a really bad social stigma. I think it's more just of a, yeah, they probably shouldn't do that, but what you gonna do?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say personally, I haven't like overtly or extremely really felt that nosiness, smashed me for whatever reason, or inversely, I had someone that was too noisy. But I definitely know, in like from a default position, I can find myself wanting to know things that maybe it's need to know information, but that I don't need to know. So this comes up a lot in work, and I might be looking after a few teams or a certain amount of people or a particular stream of work, but there will be some part of me that, hey, I'm looking after this stream of work, but there's 7 other streams, and I want to kind of know what's going on in all of them just to have a more full picture. Now, you could put that on one aspect to say, hey, you're maybe curious in a positive way in trying to understand the whole picture and get a good view of, all the work that's being done. Sure. But it can also be taken in a bit of a noisy way. And I've had this multiple times in a work career and others where, I'll be asking or prying in terms of, hey, how you going with this and whatnot, to mixed reviews, let's just say, in terms of like, well, why would you need to know that? And in reality, logically, I go, well, probably not to actually do my direct job. So you can find yourself, even with well-intended direction, to find that curiosity can just be harmful in the time sink, in the energy sink that you would use. So just pulling you away from, okay, this is what you're actually supposed to be doing. But actually, and I was going to say, do you not get curious in going down YouTube rabbit holes now, or other ideas? Because this is something that I very much strikes me, and it strikes me at odd times. Example, yesterday night at 11 p.m., and then this morning, I think at about, it would have been like 9:30 in the morning, where I just got this particular idea of listening to something, and I got curious. It was to do with AI, and it just drove me for an hour to just get super curious about, hey, has this been created? Has a company been done for this? Is there a patent for this? Is there, how would you do this? How would you find it? How would you create it? How would you blah, blah, blah. Right? And it just took like an hour of my time, of energy, of thought process, to where I kind of landed with some satisfactory notes of, okay, cool, these
So
amount
what's
of
your new
companies are
business
doing
one?
it.
Come on, give us the goss.
Hey.
What's your new business? What are you working
No,
on?
no. Well, this was, again, I was thinking through on AI aggregators in the realm of, you got your chat GPTs, I think, as in, like, chat GPT 4, you've got your all the open AI suites. You can actually go to, I forget the name of the website, but there's an aggregator already out there that brings together all of them finally enough using ChatGPT to aggregate them all together in the first place. And I was getting curious about, hey, well, has anyone actually thought about in a similar way how you can do Zapier forms or Soho forms to connect for a business perspective? Can you integrate this just absolutely completely right now from an end-to-end perspective in a full like business delivery stream? So you might have incoming call service by an AI, which then goes to an automatic form filler, automatic response using chat gpt, automatic video creation back to the player, all those sort of things. I went, okay, sure, there's some aspects to it. Then I started looking into the security aspects, which is a little bit more troublesome, especially in relation to where does data go when it's in Australia. Anyways, right? So I got curious. I get very acutely curious. And then that was just a time sink because it just made me very busy for the rest of the day because then I had other stuff to catch up on. So that's where I wouldn't term that as nosiness, but yeah, that's where curiosity kills a cat in the sense of that killed my time productivity for other things what I could have been focused on.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, yes, I will myself go down small rabbit holes. One I went down recently was the micro mouse. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
It's basically this competition, a robotics competition for solving a maze, and you have to do it as quick as possible. And it's been on the go for like 40 years or something. And so they're these tiny little mouse. Well, they're tiny now. They used to be these kind of clunky 20 centimeter by 20 centimeter robots that are like and
Mm,
searching through this maze. And now they're these tiny superpowered things which use vacuuming to stick them to the floor because they go so fast around corners that there's not enough friction. So it's pretty wild, and to see how fast these things are. So I kind of went down that, but it's for like half an hour. It's not like I find out something and then I get lost for days in it. So it's kind of yeah, and kind of no. But one thing that has passed, and this is kind of where I think it's that intermediate zone, and which is
mm,
I would say what you were talking about just then. This is a current one, the NPC live streams. Have you seen this?
no.
Oh, geez, one. Okay, so for those at home,
Is this wait, just let me try and guess. Is this the those girls in like TikTok or in other things where they kind of just go like they'll do things that the
yes, gang gang,
gift will say?
gang
Yeah,
gang,
okay, yes,
gang
yes, yes.
gang. I like ice cream.
Yep.
Yeah. So basically, it's girls who are on TikTok. They are getting these kind of rewards sent to them via the people who are listening, and these are kind of in-app purchases, which are a rose or a lightning bolt or a cowboy symbol or an ice cream, and these have a real money attached to it. People pay real money to get these things. They send it to their favorite creator, or a creator, and then the creator can, I think, redeem that for money. So it's kind of like just a shoddy way of being able to send money. Get on Bitcoin, fucking TikTok, and you'll be all right. And how these girls do, kind of make this interesting, make people send them these things is they'll react to it. And so if an ice cream cone comes up, they'll go, "Oh, me, I like ice cream," and make all these noises.
Mm,
And they will do these live streams for hours. And I was actually looking into this pretty deeply. So if you want to search it up, type in Pinky Doll into YouTube or TikTok. Type in Cherry Crush as another girl, or just NPC live stream, and you'll find these things. And they're pretty funny. I might even talk about it more in the meanderings that we do over the weekend. But I was watching this thing and I was going like, this is kind of fascinating in a way. Like I want to know what happens when she gets a lightning bolt symbol. Like what's she going to do?
mm,
And it's insanely repetitive. You only need to watch it for 20, 30 seconds and you get the gist of it. But I was kind of watching it for 2 minutes, and she'd do a new one and I'd be like, oh. And then I was just realizing like, okay, I'm curious, but this isn't this isn't helping me. This is this is bizarre. And there was this kind of weird mix of where I would call it entertainment or maybe even infotainment, where it's
yeah,
kind of informative. It kind of feels like you're learning something, not in this
yeah.
case, but in other cases. But it's kind of you're actively being played upon either way. And so I think entertainment and liking things can kind of get confused for curiosity sometimes. I
Hmm.
was curious to know what she was going to do, but in no way has that helped me in the rest of my life, other than maybe having some funny podcast content to talk about. So yeah, that's one of those ones where I go, okay, curiosity can fall into this kind of middle ground where it can feel like maybe you're doing something, feel like you're learning, feel like you're going down the right path, but you're actually just being entertained, and it's actually mind numbing. You're not. It's not the opposite of inquisitive thinking. You're kind of numbing your mind, but it can kind of feel like something's happening.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because so take it back. We were talking about, curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction saved it. And one of the aspects around, that statement makes me think you're probably curious, or the curiosity in some regard, like me this morning, would be driven by probably some dopamine hit or something similar, chemically, in that, hey, I need to be, this curiosity needs to be filled and satisfied when I reach X outcome, which for me was get a better understanding of whatever I was looking at. Whenever I have a lot of those thoughts, it's not, hey, I'm going to be satisfied when I create the company and it's already performing. No, the satisfaction comes when I do enough research that I it fills the picture of whatever I was thinking about or its viability. That's about it. In your end, there it was, hey, there was curiosity, as you mentioned, around, hey, what's going to happen with the lightning bolt. There was probably a satisfaction met and the dopamine hit finished for when, hey, that was achieved. Hey, I saw it. Cool. I feel like I've accomplished it. Which, it's we're talking about something so ridiculous, but also it kind of feels like, oh well, if anyone asks me about it in the future, I can kind of tell you that, yeah, they reacted in this way for a lightning bolt and this way with an ice cream. So there's that baseline satisfaction that I guess it meets in that regard. Because just broadly, I would say curiosity or the desire to know has to be, there's a key piece there, which is the desire, right? And in a human, just any mere mortal, desire is not driven necessarily by much more than the requests from your chemicals coming out from your brain saying, hey, this whatever thing has entered your, you know, bouncing around
Me
your
horny
neural
now,
network, yeah, and
or
it's
me
saying like,
hungry
hey,
now,
I
or
need you to
yeah.
fulfill this thing that's going to hit your dopamine regions, and it's whatever it is, right? And that's so it's that desire, and I mean the not to know. It's what I guess we interpret it as, in as you say, it's that they're going to react this way with ice cream, but I guess that's the second part of that's the satisfaction. That's the, hey, cool, we've ticked off the box, we've hit that dopamine. We're happy about that. In a might be a major form, might be a minor form.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up desire, because I think this is one where it's also so easy to point out where desire can take you down the wrong path, and where you can go too deep. So here's a couple of things here: the gore or death videos, those kind of instant karma justice ones, where it's like a bully gets punched in the face, or hit over the head with a board or something like that. There's the hardcore or the really weird porn. There's all of these things which I think are, you're curious about it, right? And probably most of us have at some point in our life found our way to the weirder side of what's on the internet, and you can satisfy those I don't know what you'd call it, desires. But and it's fascinating, right? Like the first time you see a gore video or something, it can fascinate you. Now, for some people, they just look away in horror and it's like traumatizing. But I think for a lot of us, it is like, oh, what? I'm watching it, but it's kind of like I'm also grossed out at the same time. So I think there's ones where you can be curious about it, but you can know it's kind of wrong as well. It's kind of wrong to
Mm.
satisfy that curiosity. Brendan, my friend, we had a trip away on the weekend, and we were coming back on the car ride, and I have no idea why this came up, because we were talking about NPC live streams just before that, and he was telling me how he saw a video of a dude who got attacked by a bear, and basically the bear clawed this dude's face, and his skin was kind of just hanging from these claws of his face, and he was sending a video to his brother who was up the river or something to go get help, but he was like real calm and taking this video,
Hmm.
and I was just going like, I kind of want to see it, but I know watching that would be bad for me. I know this wouldn't help me in my life. It would make me feel bad, or it would just, I just don't need to see that. There's only, once you've seen one ISIS beheading, you've kind of seen them all, to be honest. And so there's something, I think there's a curiosity where if you satisfy it, it's actually destructive. If you continue watching the weirdest, farthest out of porn where it's not even sexual anymore. It's something completely different. It's more like psychological rather than even a
Mm,
physical thing. That sort of stuff, or you know, like I was saying, the gore, the death, the instant karma. There is, I think, a way of satisfying your curiosity where, yeah, that is going to damage you and just be unhelpful in all sorts of cases, and you're only doing it because it's more of a self-destructive thing.
mm. And one question I have for you was, at least personally, if you've seen that curiosity has gotten to like be harmful to you, and but it was going to be in similar lines, right? So again, saying it from that hedonic principle, right? Yeah, I think it's something like an amphetamine or cocaine or another drug. You hit it once, you hit a certain level of the dopamine hit in the hedonic sort of like level, then it goes back to baseline. But kind of the next time you have to hit that drug or hit that whatever it is that you want, you kind of have to go a little bit higher. Here for general consumption here, the immortalites probably coffee, right? You build up that tolerance
Not
against
over here.
caffeine. Not for Kyron, he's on a immortal fix. He's sub immortal. And when you go down that path over time, you just build a tolerance. So we can you can think about it like that in more broader ways. There's just a tolerance that gets hit, which then means that to fulfill or satisfy the desire, which is here curiosity, you need to go a little bit further. And so again, a prime example for me was just recently a guy died squatting. I don't know if you've heard about
No, no.
this. It was kind of making the rounds in Twitter and a few other places.
Like
Now,
Australia or somewhere in
no, it would have
Europe?
been in US somewhere,
Okay.
but it was being talked about quite widely.
Weak.
I saw a like a comment about it, and then I got curious. I was like, "Oh, is there a video about this?" There was a video, but it stopped just before the guy, whatever happened,
What did he do?
that made
Break
him
his
sort of
neck?
die.
Heart attack? Did it
No, well, yeah, you'll sort of because I was also curious, right? See, you're getting curious about this too.
mm,
How did he die? Right? Did he like was he going too hard? Did he like break his legs? What's going on?
yeah.
And so this is that curiosity principle where it pushed me to go find this video. I was like, okay, I'm gonna find it. It's gonna be on Reddit somewhere. So I
Okay,
found the
yeah.
video, and it was basically he was squatting 200, 220, got to the bottom, he had a spotter, and he tried to. I don't know if he really tried to or this spotter was trying to help him, but basically he tried to roll it off the front of
Okay.
himself at the bottom,
Yeah.
but his forehead basically hit his chest with the barbell right on top and just like
Oh.
break his neck. And I don't know if it was
Oh.
like immediately or it didn't look like it was immediate because he kind of rolled off,
Mm,
but death
yeah.
ensued when you do that. Now
Yes.
that was like okay, I was satisfied my curiosity, but like you call out the problem with fo- using that desire and fulfilling the desire continuously, if it was to come up again quite suddenly, and again with that hedonic principle, you kind of have to push the boundary then a little bit further to both satisfy the dopamine hit that's coming from the curiosity. What does that then lead you? It goes again and again and again and again. So there's obviously the one aspect of you might be losing time and energy, and that's probably yeah the least worries. But where it can get harmful is okay, well, what happens when you see that and now you have to be fulfilled? Your curiosity gets fulfilled by seeing it, more. And then you have to see it, live, and then you have to see it in
Yeah.
person, and you have to like enact it to go and do it, right? And so there was a good famous Netflix show about the cat killer. I think it was called the cat killer.
No, no, no. You're thinking of Don't Fuck with Cats.
Don't fuck with cats, right? Yes, yes, yes. So in that one, that individual who was going around and killing people and sort of they're hunting him down, you could kind of see that. Well, not individually there, but you can see it in like
Yeah,
serial killers or another.
I get what you're trying to get at with that, which is the escalation of things. I'm not actually sure how much that relates to curiosity though, because uh,
Well, I was going to say that that's the where would curiosity be harmful? It would be, it would be in the continual fulfillment of curiosity into realms which can eventuate to some really dark paths.
yeah, perhaps unthinking curiosity. So going back to the definition, inquisitive thinking. That kind of implies that there's a bit of self awareness or something going on there. You're inquisitive for a reason, whereas if it's kind of non inquisitive thinking, but you're still taking action on something. because there's a slight curiosity. I guess we're kind of
Maybe I
bending
mean I'm
bending
taking
words
on
here a
the
little
angle
bit.
of like the desire to know. You could find someone that goes, "How I really want to know about." Obviously this is an extreme example, but I want to know about anatomy and I want to know about hearts and how they beat, and you get this like neurotic feeling about it, and then you have to go see a video and then get tapes, and then you want to see it in person, so you want to cut up people and get the heart out. Like, I want to see it. I want to be able to feel it and understand it so fully. Okay,
Yeah,
that's time to get. You kind of have to be a very something off about you as a mere mortal to get to that level, but
yeah,
it
yeah.
is fulfilling the curiosity that you probably shouldn't fulfill to a certain path.
Yeah, see, because most of that is this is kind of getting too close for my comfort to the, video games is the reason that there's so much violence in culture, or it's kind of you're satisfying a a desire or whim or something like that, and then blaming the Columbine killers, or what's his name, Marilyn Manson, for the Columbine killers and what they did because they listened to his stuff, and
Hmm.
it's kind of like, yeah, I've never seen any evidence that supports the further down you go necessarily means you translate that into real life action as well. So that's one of those ones where I guess it's kind of where we're on both. I'm kind of on that same thinking where if you satisfy those, watching those videos and stuff, I don't think it's helpful for just for yourself psychologically, but I wouldn't be able to prove it either. I remember, here's another one. So,
Hmm.
uh, yourbrainonporn.com. It's this website which is basically trying to show how porn is bad for you. And this is one of those ones where I'm like, yes, I can see if I get too addicted to it, if I get too fascinated by this stuff, it can lead to areas where you're watching stuff and it's not even porn anymore. Really, it's just kind of it's kind of like weird things. And so in that case, I'm like, okay, yeah, porn is bad. And yeah, I remember looking at this site and I never found anything there which I felt was really rigorous scientific studies. It kind of felt kind of biased. And so
Okay.
it's it's one of those, yeah, it's one of those ones where I feel like this is correct, but I'm not sure I'd be able to prove it scientifically, which then makes me question.
Yeah, true. You could scale it down as well, where, and I think probably if it gets too extreme, I think it gets hard to go. Well, you can't directly link it, but I've seen two examples actually recently. I think your brother, playing soccer, and another friend whose son was also playing soccer, and there would have been some curiosity of both. I think in terms of, hey, I want to see how good I can get in a year. I want to see how, and so through that curiosity, they might get injured,
He tore his
and so
PCL.
and so you can't say that it was because of the curiosity. It wasn't directly because of curiosity that happened,
Correct, yeah.
but that is how curiosity can be harmful in the sense that if you maybe evade the possibility that that could happen and you're just curious and you're just going to do it no matter what, let's just see how good I can get, and then you get injured. Again, you can kind of say it's not direct, but there's some indirect effects to curiosity being harmful.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd put that on the lower end, unless it's like he was curious about how far he could twist his knee. it's
Yeah, it would
that's
have to be.
that's
Yeah,
not
it'd have
the
to be a bit more direct. That's true. That's
that's
true.
not the cause of why he got a PCL tear.
No,
Apparently a micro one, but it's still it's keeping him out for a fair while. What do you reckon,
weak.
Juan? Should we get onto some boostergrams, satisfy
Well, I was
the
gonna say I think
curiosity
people
of
are getting curious now to hear about
definitely,
the boostergrams as of late. So I think we need to jump in, and show you folks where we're up to.
definitely.
As I'm loading it up now, one has absolutely been checking it in already, so I'm got to go back to what particular date.
So you should be going back to the 19th. Is this
19th of July.
Yes,
Here we
correct.
go. Good stuff. All right, so let's begin. We've got Peter. Of
Peter.
course we do. $10
No, wait.
million offer.
No,
Hard no.
we read that one. We read
Oh no,
that
we
one.
didn't. Trade.
Yeah. So it's like
Apologies.
it's
It's the
it's
next one.
like
Sorry, that was right before. Okay,
yeah,
good.
yeah.
We got one from Macintosh. Sorry,
No,
I
wait, we
cannot.
read that one as well. So
Mate,
it's the 20th then.
I'd like to apologize here. This is definitely not Juan's doing. This was Karen's doing.
Well, it's
Um,
technically the 19th, so it's from the 19th
true,
onwards. Yeah.
true. Well, then we begin with the dependable Dave Jones. Weekly boost for the Immortal Nation, 12,112 sats sent using Cron. Once again, Dave, thank you very much.
Rock on. Thank you, Dave.
Again, have you set up anything with potentially with Dave?
No, no. Yeah, we'll see what happens with that.
Okay.
Yeah, potentially maybe go on the podcasting 2.0 show if they need a guest, and to talk about value for value.
Mate, what do you mean if they need a guest? You need to force yourself in there. You gotta say, yes, I'm going to go on at this date.
I always feel so bad, man. Like I feel like they're these two precious gems, Adam and Dave. I don't want to take up any of their time.
Gotta go on. Gotta go on. But yes, thank you very much, Dave. We've got Andrew Crow. Boosted.
Boosted.
Listen to this as a promo and got 100 sats for it. Good info. So I boomerang them back and he sent through 100 sats and using Fountain.
Legend.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Andrew Crow.
That's always good to see. I sent through one. It was more so a Tesla as well, just making sure that the things I was putting in there were sending. I said, Jeff, good to hear. And that was off the conversation I did with Jeff. We got one with Macintosh. Interesting thoughts on research with the bonus inclusion of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, Macintosh. And that's 2100 sats sent using Fountain.
I responded to him by saying, because you can respond to ones in Fountain, and I would send him a message, and I was just like, yeah, every time we bring up the Pareto principle, I'm nervous because I've misused that so many times. It's such an easy one to get wrong,
to mess up.
But
so yeah,
yes,
thank you very much.
Thank you, Macintosh. I'll read this one. So this one was from the Immortals podcast. This is myself, and I said I'm about halfway through at the moment, loving it despite my non-interest in cars. Cool to see you improve as a podcaster over the years, Wani. And then I sent a row of ducks in. Yeah. So this is in response to the Jeff Yu conversation that Juan had with the Jeff Yu, the owner of Monochrome, ex-CEO of Binance Australia, talking about electronic traded funds of Bitcoin coming to a ETF for ASX near you, I guess. And yeah, that was a really great episode, man. Like I said, I'm only halfway through, but I think you start talking about cars pretty soon. So
we do. Yeah. So you might empty
10 minutes left to
yeah.
until I go. Nah, I'm all good. But yeah,
Yeah,
definitely worth checking
definitely
that
go
out.
into some
And
heavy car conversations with that one, which was fun.
if you're tuning in now and you want to listen to it and you want to earn some sats as well, we're going to promote this on Fountain shortly. So just look out for it there as well. And just yeah, recommendation to do that. And I'll read this last one as well while I'm on it. Received donation message from Cyber Pigeon, and he's got great breakdown. 101 sats sent using Fountain. I'm not actually even sure which episode that one's for. I'd have to go back into the data and try and find that. Yeah, because I don't have that up on me. But thank you, Cyber Pigeon. Once again, a couple of new names popping in there.
Yeah, it's good to see new names.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. So, yes, everyone, we probably should have said this right at the start. A boostergram is a message that you can send within the podcasting app if you're using a decent app, which has things like transcripts, chapters, which has links that you're able to see. And these are these basically new apps that you can use on your phone to listen into podcasts. In these, you can send a message directly to us, which is very, very cool because normally that is actually extremely hard to do. You'd have to follow any of the links in our bio, go to there, go to Instagram, blah, 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 blah. No, this way you can send a message directly to us. All of these things we were saying, sats, they are a portion of money that has been sent directly to us as well, which is a way to support this show, which is the only way that we garner monetary support. We don't take advertising, we don't have paywalls, we don't have sponsorships or anything like that. We just ask that if you get value from this show, you send in an amount that is equal to the value that you got from that. You can also do things like sharing it with another person, or if you're if you're curious, go check out the Value for Value podcast. You might learn a little bit more there.
Ooh, you slid it in.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Thank you very much there, Karen.
Yeah.
Now, back into curiosity, and look, we talked a little bit already about the negativity here, but I want to slide before we go into the positivity. We're in other areas.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go into some philosophy.
Oh, okay. All right. I
And
wasn't expecting this.
I wanted
Nice.
to ask you. I wanted to ask you this particular stream of questions, and I guess so. I had a little note here, and I said, curiosity. But why? Why a desire to know, and not just satisfied with knowing it? So, from your perspective, if someone tells you something, or says to you, "Hey, there's a man down by the river, and he's got a donkey's head for an ass, and he's got 2 left feet," right? Is there part of you that defaults to just being satisfied
Yeah,
with
tons,
knowing
man.
it?
I've told you tons. The definition of credulity and gullible and I know the difference between these because I've had to repeat this so many times, is I'm very credulous. If someone says something, I believe it. So that's almost like an anti-curiosity thing. It's kind of
Mm,
default believe it. And so I don't even need to satisfy it for myself. Like, yes, in that case, I probably would go, what the fuck? I want to see this. But many a time I will, if it's something that maybe would pique other people's curiosity, or why did one phrase this thing in this way? Or uh, an example, when we're living together, you came in one night and you were really quiet. And I only found out later why you were quiet. But there was nothing really that made me go like, I need to find out what Juan is quiet about. I kind of was like,
mm.
I didn't even really observe it that much, which is another problem with me. I'm not that observant, especially of human behaviors and interactions that maybe are slightly off or slightly different. So in that case, I would kind of be going, yeah, I don't really have that much in me, and uh, yeah, do I need it? Do you think is that something that you could work on in creating curiosity if you're a
Honestly,
non-curious person?
I don't think there is. Just a default thinking of that, unless maybe we can talk it through and it becomes a thing. I don't think so. I
Yeah,
think it's. I
I don't
almost
have
think
it
it's
either.
something a little bit more innate to the personality of a human. You either. And that's why I had a like my note there was because for me there has always been like a desire to know and not just knowing it. We talked about this in the past in a couple of podcasts ago where you know if someone says to you that Australia exists or England exists and you could read about it and you could look at a map and you kind of have to be trusting enough to trust the authority that's put this together and fine, we'll most of us will do that on a day to day, but there is some part of it for me of the first person versus third person experience of it in the curiosity sense, and maybe you know the thrill of discovery. And I was going to ask you as well, does do you feel like there's any thrill of discovery that you find in anything you do which kind of coincides with curiosity? Because for me there's definitely a differentiation for as long as I can remember. I don't know whether that was a trained thing or maybe grew up as a thing, but there's more of a default of wanting the first person view and experience of something, and then that's the desire to know and the curiosity. Then there is a third person. So if someone was to say to me something about mathematics or black holes or something else, I kind of have this sense of, hey, I'm curious to know and want to like see the raw bones, the all the detail, which for all practical reasons I can't. Like I just won't be able to process it or understand it. I need to go and find a summary from somewhere. But there's part of me that's the thrill. The thrill is in the, okay, I want to see it. Like I want to see this information. Same thing goes with that original story. If someone came around the corner and said, hey, there's this X, and it makes me really curious, I'm going to default go, okay, cool. I want to participate. I want to see it. I want to be around it and get myself a first person experience, not a third person retelling or kind of like having to visualize it in my mind.
Mm. I had to, so before we get onto the good stuff about it, so I had my notes like, am I and is one curious? So for me, I think it was pretty easy, and I already talked about it. I'm just straight up apathetic a lot of the time. Um, I think, I was telling you the other day, someone said that I was curious, and I said, yeah, I don't think that's a great word to describe me. I think it's easy to get confused by it because I can be methodical, and so if you have ever watched me play a video game,
Hmm.
back in the day, I would go into all of the caves. I would explore all of the various locations. Now, was this because I was curious? No, it was because I was methodical and I wanted to get all the coins, or I wanted to tick off all the things
Hmm.
before I went on to the next stage. So it's not, I don't think I would call that curiosity. It
Hmm.
was more, yeah, something else related to that. It's not too far away, but it's not curiosity.
Well,
Uh,
there's a very clear differentiation between the like curiosity has to be defined by not the accomplishment or something, but by the satisfaction that you obtain from the act of going ahead and finding and knowing it. So, you know, I would have said that that's curiosity in your, because I had a similar thing about gamification of ticking it off. It's that if you're doing it for ticking off something like your list of to do, like your to do list, or you have to go and see every single one. I would say, yeah, that's less curiosity. That might be more driven by how I want to have things right. That you could say it's, it's an extreme perfectionism, or you just want to accomplish things, or you want to tick them all off and make sure everything's been done. That's slightly different to curiosity, I would say as well, like in kind of mapping to that. So that is a slight deviation. Curiosity should be purely the satisfaction of just going ahead and doing the exploration. That in itself is enough. That's the satisfaction. That's what fulfills the desire.
Yeah. I was actually thinking for you, and I was originally putting us actually pretty close together. And for this reason
Hmm.
was uh, there's something about curiosity which I think has a certain purposelessness to it. I don't know if that's a word, purposeless nature to it,
Hmm.
where like you said, there's no action that's necessarily going to come from it, which I think is very kind of in contrast to your nature, which is you need to have the binary decision. You need to find the thing to then be able to take an action kind of towards it, or at
Hmm.
least that's kind of what I had on you. So I was like, oh man, one's maybe just as not as curious as I am. Yeah, probably on reflection, that's not true. And if there was a bell curve, like I'd be two day deviations far out, and you're probably more in the middle. But it's still, I still wouldn't categorize you as necessarily super curious, or even getting close to the other end of the bell curve where it's like, oh, those are the really curious people who are, I don't know, probably people like historians or journalists that just keep digging. They have to keep going on. Pete Smithson, I would actually say, is probably a kind of curious. He seems to, when he goes down rabbit holes, like he just goes and goes and goes, from what I can tell. Um, and maybe even my brother, if he wasn't so lazy. And there's another one I had, like the Summoning Salt YouTube channel, if you've ever heard of that, which is really into the speed running community. And man, this dude just digs and digs and digs and creates these hour-long videos of the history of speed running. And it's like, man, this dude has to be curious, because I don't know how you can get that deep into this stuff.
Yeah, look, I would have positioned myself in the middle of like just the average mere mortal of curiosity, because I think there's whispers of things which I know I get curious about, but in a similar sense, and that's differentiation. A lot of mine are gamification, ticking off accomplishments, few and far between. Like the example I gave you, where I might think of an idea, business idea or equivalent. I just want to research it. Sure, there's some default curiosity there of just wanting to know and being satisfied with going ahead and knowing. But in a lot of other places, it's more about I did it, I completed this, I put it together. Like from my training, there's no curiosity in the day to day minutia. It's here's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go and perform that, and when I tick it all off and I do it, I'm going to be really happy. I was supposed to do a 5K run this morning, and all this other stuff. Slept in late, didn't do it. Didn't go in and did my training session. Ended up training for like 2 hours or something. Got home, went and ran because I was like, I'm gonna tick this off. Like I'm gonna finish this run off. And so that's not curiosity. That's just accomplishing what I'd put down. Like I'm not curious, desire to know. It's just go do it.
Yep.
In the more broad sense, I think that there's the normal curiosity you find in most humans. For me, it's you know, what could be achieved by X date? What could be achieved if I do this? What's the plan of play if I'm trying to go down a certain path? And there's less outcomes attached to that. There's more just the exploration, which is fun. So yeah, I would find myself there. The like an example of someone on the extreme end, just to give you, because I was just trying to find his particular name, and I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I did mention someone else, Simon Kernell, which is an Aussie guy, and
I
he
don't
was
know him.
the world champion of Magic in
Oh yes, okay, yes.
2017 or 2021. I can't remember which exact year. He
Yep.
was the FISM World of Magic champion. And there was a particular story where he was having a chat with Tim Ferriss about it, about how someone would describe him, Simon, as someone who would basically say, if you're trying to do a recipe and you're making a banana cake, he would go to step one, which was find the banana. And Simon would be like, oh, what is a banana, and then spend 6 months going and figuring out all the detail. Now that to me is kind of a extremely curious person where, the outcome is make a fucking cake and you just go off on a tangent and you go something completely different, whether you think it's related to it or not, but it's almost the absolute desire to just go and do it. So I don't think I've ever had that. Like I've never deviated away from such a thing so emphatically that it just disrupts everyday life. Nah, like I don't think I'll be ever a human that's I've got a desire to know how how good I might be as a sports star, so I'll just dedicate my whole life to this and fuck everything else. No, nothing gonna happen. Like this, maybe you almost have to have a low level of rationality in some ways to become that curious, and that can be a good thing, and it can be a bad thing, like we just talked about.
Yeah. I think that's also getting into that purposeless kind of default of just going just to see, even though it doesn't have an outcome to it. It's probably
Yeah, but
might
I'll
not
give
be
you
helpful, but
I'll give you an
yeah,
example here of curiosity. So here's coming into the good. Let's move into the
yeah.
good things. I'll give you an
Give me the
example of
good stuff
how
because I didn't have
I'm
any.
hey.
I didn't write down any good qualities.
Oh, good, good. So here's like as we're going through the podcast, we go okay. How either can you build curiosity, right? So you made that question. I think that there are some self-imposed levels of curiosity that you can propagate into at least tasks that beginners, do something and then it might generate more curiosity in other angles or in other aspects. One is doing interviews and doing podcasts like the ways that we've been doing. That has probably increased quite a bit the way that I become curious in amongst people. It's now pretty common for me when I'm either catching up with people who I don't really know that much or, not long term friends, where they might say something and I'll just be default curious about something that they say and I'll just ask it very directly and specifically and more genuinely be wanting to get the answer as opposed to moving the chess pieces on the board per se. Because a long time ago, pre podcast, I could say all of those things as well, but it was chess piece moving, right? Like I could know in terms of, okay, cool. I know that you like this and you understand this particular player and this interaction. I'm going to find out more details here so that I can influence X party over there or whatever, right? There was outcomes attached to it.
Go check out
So
the politics episode for
yeah,
for
you can
one's
go see some
wheelings and
details of
dealings.
that. But here was pure curiosity of, no, I just want to kind of know, and it sounds interesting, or at least to me, and perhaps maybe it's interesting to the table here that we're talking to. Kind of similar in the podcast where, we might be having an interaction or do an interview and you go, well, I'm curious about that. And perhaps someone else is going to be curious, but that's not the end outcome. It's just, you're almost just seeking to fulfill your desire to know. So I think podcasting or just openly having conversations does definitely help. But here's and this is a sneak peek for the monthly goals / annual goals that are coming up for me.
Woohoo.
Um, drawing. Now, drawing in itself is very much a. If I had to think about it, dude, it would have to be a very targeted outcome based thing. Like, hey, can I learn how to draw? Can I learn how to draw a cactus? A jellyfish. How do you do it? How's the best way? Best pens, best paper. How do you do it? And so that would be my default position. Not curious. This is tick the box accomplishment. But what I'm going to try and do is basically just do a drawing once a week, right? And I'm trying to pull away anything that's to do with accomplishments or ticking it off, apart from doing it once a week. What it looks like, don't know. Like what I want it to be like, don't know. Doodle it, scratch it, whatever. Just could look like absolute shit to at least my perception. The idea behind that is, hey, I'll just be curious if I do one a week for a year, will I deviate towards a particular pattern? Will I create it in some way centered around the things that happen that week? Will I go to creating human-like forms? Will it be abstract-like forms? And then I want to attach it and still sort of thinking this through to then loading that up into a generative AI and then getting it to create, not like using this doodle, scratch pad, whatever, use maybe like a predetermined thing that I might be thinking about that week to create something, right? And then I could use that as a cool playing around with AI / doing some drawing. And so not having any outcome basis to it, it's just purely doing a week for a year without any expectations. And honestly, kind of, it's a bit hard. Like I want to start it, but I also go, oh, but could I be aiming to get better at drawing doodles, or could I be getting better at drawing whatever? And I go, and I actually listened to this in another podcast, and it was like some consultant telling it, like a CEO who was kind of doing a similar thing, and was like, no, that's not the purpose of this. The purpose is purely for the doing, and for them it's like the relaxing. And I think for me it's almost the curiosity, like it's almost a self-imposed non-passive curiosity aspect of, I'm going to put something in play so that I can find out these things, and I genuinely do want to find out, but it's imposed. It's like self-imposed. So I think you can have self-imposed ways to improve curiosity or mandate curiosity to be found in the things that you do. In amongst, I think in other ways, you can do this in language, like language learning. You kind of have to almost put yourself into a default curious position of desire to know, unless you're just absolutely hating it 100% as you're doing it. Like you're just doing it out of like pile driving your head through books and Duolingo.
Yeah, I was going to say if you're ever going to apply curiosity to me, it's probably related to language learning. That's where
Mm.
I would take the extra steps to go down a random path. And yeah, a little sneak peek for maybe my annual goals for next year as well. That is that maybe some Portuguese might be coming my way. So
Obrigado.
obrigado. You know what? Funnily enough, when you were just saying then, all I could think of was Juan's trying to satisfy his curiosity of whether he can self-restrain himself from self-improvement.
Yeah, and
Can
like,
he do
I
it?
think,
Can he do it, people?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think
Send us some
there's
sats, send us a boost, and
yeah, look, I think
my
there's
bet's
definitely
no.
some self improve improvised ways that you can try to find the curiosity. But in general, look, in a more passive way, I think it's your younger years, or even just an innate thing that as you grow up, you kind of know there's kids who are curious and maybe seen as odd bods. Look, I haven't really looked into the data or the science, and nor the mere models here, the type of podcast that we do that. But if I had to hazard a guess, I would say, when you're 25 and 30, you kind of, in a lot of other attributes as well, but curious is probably one of those things that is fairly stable. Like you're not going to move it, by whole differentiations. You're not going to move from, in a bell distribution. You're not going to just move statistically like massive leaps one way or another in curiosity. I don't know if you can even forcibly do that. You'll just have a default personality, default set of attributes, and I think curiosity kind of falls under one of them. It can be helpful to be curious, and it can make you seem liked. It can, I think, to other people, it can go, "Hey, this person's interested." As long as, and I guess there's a caveat with a lot of things, curiosity for the sake of curiosity, which would be the principally what we're talking about here, the desire to know, that's good, and it can get you into bad places. But in general, I'd say I'd lean towards it's good, right? It's the influential curiosity. It's the cloaky curiosity, aka you're looking, you got the cloak that you're curious, but there's devilish undertones, undercurrents of what you're actually trying to ask, and you're asking it for not the desire to know, but desire to know so that you can accomplish something, which is then leveraged by that. And then I'd go, okay, that's not curiosity. That's you're utilizing the ability of conversation to then get the outcome of something else. That's slightly different.
Mm. Yes, in a summary for me, we're talking. Here's some of the words that we're describing. You need to be non-apathetic but earnest. You need to be non-timid and probably courageous. I didn't bring those two up, but I think that's a part of it as well. There's the kind of having curiosity and then also acting on it. And
Hmm.
many, I think, people will not act on it because they are too timid or they are not courageous enough to actually go for it. Uh, being non-lazy and having kind of that unbiased desire. So it's not a desire for a purpose, purposeless and full of energy. So there's quite a few things that are all wrapped up, which I think kind of describe it. And this is where I actually go, even if many people actually kind of fit what you might describe as curious, I don't think that many actually act upon it. And so,
Hmm.
much like how I was having trouble describing you, and I initially thought, oh, yeah, Juan's got to be on the non curious side of things, much like I. No, it's probably one of those words where it is the perception in my mind of what I think the average person is way far off to the end. And the curious ones that I actually think like, oh yeah, that's a
Mm.
curious person, they are probably actually way further in on like they're the actual, top peak, top 1% of actual curious people in the world. So I think it's one of those words which is actually the perception in my mind actually doesn't match up to the reality. Um, for me, I was actually, does it actually matter? Because if that's the case, so in what circumstances in life is it essential to have curiosity? When I've never heard of, a bio for a girl or a guy and they're talking about the other person, like what are the top 5 traits I want? I rarely hear curiosity as being one of
Yeah.
those. And I was just thinking, like, when is the only time I've ever heard people saying curiosity is a really important uh, sticking point? Like that's one of the top traits you're looking for. The only times I can recall is perhaps in recruiters or people who are hiring and they're kind of entrepreneurs and they've got a small company and they need people to fill like a very niche role of, I don't know, VC investigator to find out, what are the outsized opportunities or something like that.
Mm.
But in most everyday life and most jobs, you probably are hiring for the automaton. You'd rather have a robot than a human. And if you don't have the robot available, you probably want the human who is most like a robot, who just does the job and gets the shit done. At least that was what my old engineering job felt like. If I was a really curious person, I think I would have had a worse time. I think I would have been punished for that in probably
Even more.
subtle ways,
Yeah. Even
because
more severely.
yeah, that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for the dude who will work on the weekly plan every single fucking week for 3 years to, and then do the monthly plan and that sort of stuff. That I don't think they're looking for a super curious person. Some smarts, yeah, some other attributes and
But not
consistency, and
curious.
but not curious. So
Yeah.
if you're not curious like me out there, I think there's still hope. I think you're gonna have a good life. You
You're
just
probably having you're probably having less suffering in the world. Yeah, honestly, my summary of it was I don't think curiosity is a mandatory or a must-have. In and that's specifically saying it's not like you have to be on the standard deviation of being really curious. It's fine to just be in the general average curve. It's almost a nice to have. It's nice to meet someone who's curious. It's nice to be a curious person, whether it's, you know, insert whatever event, whatever action you're partaking. Curiosity is nice. It's nice. It's not a must have. You don't have to be a human who has to be insanely curious. So if you're not by default, I would say it would be almost just as an equivalent energy wastage to then try to become a really curious person. I feel like there's other attributes in this world that are probably going to help you in the betterment, and then adjacent might help you be more curious. Kind of like the, although no equivalent, but happiness. If you try to be happy, I feel like that's almost a fool's errand. You're almost better off, chasing other things, and then through that, the adjacency of becoming happy kind of just surfaces to the top. I guess in assembly, but not as important thing. Curiosity, I'd say, target other things, and you'll probably find yourself becoming a little bit more curious by just the fact you're looking for other attributes to improve on.
Yeah, nice, good summary, man.
Good. All right. Well, folks, Karen did a pretty good job there of just summarizing in terms of how you can support the podcast here. So if you are curious,
Yeah,
feel
there's
free
there's two
to.
other things I wanted to mention. So I did check the PayPal just before. No one's donated to that. And then also the one of the things that's going to be kind of difficult is that many a time you're gonna have to be able to donate to the show, but we won't be able to separate it. Like if someone's donating from the value for value, I'm not really going to be able to acknowledge that in the value for value show. It's all going to have to conglomerate here.
Mm,
So that's probably just the thing that we'll have to make certain of. And for example, I've got another Albi got another Albi wallet set up for us to kind of separate ones which are just coming through the website and things like that. So
mhm,
I forgot to mention this before. If you don't want to get a new podcasting app, that's totally fine. Uh, if you go to meremodelspodcast.com/support, there's a link in the show notes. That is one of the ways where you can do it probably in the most easiest manner. There was some clickable links there which will take you directly where you need to go. So being able to do it that way. And then, yeah, in terms of curiosity, one, is there any topic that you'd like to that has been sparked in your mind for next week? Get the people curious about maybe what's coming up, or are we gonna have to disappoint them and leave it unsatisfied and leave it unknown and mysterious? Ooh.
There has been one that come up, and I think it'll probably be fitting, and I think we should reinspect language learning.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
think we should go back to language learning because there's the last time I think we talked about languages was a while ago,
We've kind of
and I
danced around
think
it, but it was mostly around Duolingo, not the actual language learning
yeah, and we're
itself.
about to step into a venture where I'm also about to kick off sort of the fourth language learning sort of track as well.
Ooh.
Sounds like you are as well, so we're
Kind of.
starting to move towards the you know that realm of conversation. And so there's a very there's always a difference between sort of a company when you go from one person to three people and three people to 10 people and 10 people to 30 people. There is a difference between when you go from one language to two languages to three languages to now four languages. There's a differentiation there in terms of capacity, splitting of effort, etc. I think it'll be worth a conversation there and how you potentially become a polyglot.
Beautiful. I hate that word, by the way, but that'll come up in the episode.
There you go. All right, folks. So we'll leave it there. Yes, do support. I'll probably just say go to the supporters page. It's probably going to be the best way. You're going to get a lot of information there. But if you did enjoy, yeah, feel free to share with another
Yep.
the immortal light out there as
Two of
well.
our shirts are going to be posted this week to people who have reached the 100,000 sat limit. So
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
you,
And rest assured, I think we're gonna redo this shirt idea in a slightly different way.
yeah,
But I'll have to we'll play around with the idea and what that looks
we'll
like. But
figure that out more. Yeah.
if you have some ideas, drop it to us. We'll be keen to hear it as well.
Mere Mortals beanie,
Um,
Chucks,
ooh,
Mere
Chuck,
Mortals Chucks beanies.
Chuck's beanies for sure. It'll just be at the back. It'll be like just a big Chuck's setup.
I would fly to
All right,
Argentina just to buy a whole bag of them and
to bring
bring
it
them
to
back.
bring it back. Yeah. All right, me Immortalites. Thank you so much for tuning in again live 7 p.m. Brisbane Eastern Standard Time. I hope you have enjoyed yourself. And for now, me Immortalites, one out.
Current out.
Good.
Bye.
Good.
Good. Alrighty.